half an hour.
Perfect.
Try to do like four stories each. 3 stories each, I guess.
Sounds good. Do you see that tweet? Oh, I'll say in the show.
Yeah.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, which camera would I start on for the live?
Start with me. I'll do the intro.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah, everything's rolling.
Yo, everyone, welcome back. Brand new Techish. It's a new season.
2024.
It's me, Michael Bahane, and I am with
Abadesi. Apostle crew.
There we go. Don't be rusty with the intros. Got to plug your shit. So, anyways, you know what, man? There's a lot of people listening to this now who very well may have been laid off.
Ouch.
You
Been
know what
there.
I mean? You've been there, yeah.
Twice.
I've never been laid off actually, but that's because I'm such a bad employee. I've always left after like 6 months. I digress. So I looked at a stat, and apparently 51 tech companies have done layoffs alone
51
in 2024.
It's like the 20th day of the year.
That's what I'm saying.
What?
Obviously there's some notable ones amongst them, like Google. I think Amazon Prime has done a few layoffs. Twitch. I think Discord, Cloudflare. So anyways,
Wow.
where can we take this? Like, do you have any words of sage advice for people that have been laid off?
You know, it's so interesting because when people are laid off, the first thing that people think about is severance. Like, oh, will I still get my healthcare benefits? Especially if you're in the US, right? Yep. Will I still, be able to access this and access that? And I think because we're so driven on like the finances, we forget the emotional toll.
Right.
And, I put a tweet about this out a few weeks ago. Like, what people forget about being laid off is that it does feel like rejection.
100%.
Like people say, oh, it's just business, it's not personal. But at the end of the day, you're like, oh, but that engineer stayed and I didn't. Or that community manager stayed and I didn't. And it feels like rejection. And I think one of the things that you really need to focus on if you are in that situation is honestly your mental health.
Right.
Like your well-being. And if you can afford professional support, get counseling and get therapy and talk through those really negative emotions. And, for a lot of people, especially if they're like the breadwinner in their household, it doesn't really matter if they've got severance because now they've got that burden of like finding the next thing in a really challenging market.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. So there was obviously we live in an era of content creation.
Yes.
So we're seeing now like that bird's eye view of people being laid off and they're posting it on their socials. So there was a famous or recent notable example where this lady had been laid off from Cloudflare.
Okay.
And she was a salesperson. I think she'd been there for 3 months. So she decided to record it, set up the camera before the Zoom call, knowing that she probably was going to get laid off.
Yeah.
And she was fighting back with the HR person. Who was like, listen, why me though? I know you're saying you're laying off all these people, but why me?
Yeah.
And essentially they were trying to say that, I don't think they could go into details. It was very much like the HR was reading a script, essentially.
Well, they don't want to
open
themselves up.
Yeah, so it started a debate. Was it appropriate to record it? 1.
Yeah.
2, she was a salesperson who I think had been working there for 3-4 months, hadn't closed the deal. Although I think Cloudflare, the deals are like 1 million, 2 million.
Yeah.
So it's a very difficult deal to close. And she said that I was trained for like 2 months. And then like I had like 1 month of actually trying.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? And also, do you think it was wise for her to do that? Like, for her own career's sake?
I mean, it's so interesting because I'm guessing that she wanted to like get some kind of leverage to
record it. I don't know.
Exit. I mean, who knows? Like, well, why else are you recording it? What, just
for clout? Yeah, TikTok clout.
What, for her future documentary?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
followers.
Look, reading between the lines, being a Black and Asian woman, I know that typically the groups most impacted by layoffs are underrepresented people. Yeah. Right? Like they just love to get rid of the Black folks, the brown folks. Maybe there was an opportunity to potentially like record something in that conversation that could like open up the potential for like litigation.
Oh, interesting. So it was about securing a bag, a lawsuit, or
maybe
a severance package here and there, get some leverage.
It's dark times out there.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel for her. Obviously, listen, it's very frustrating when you're on a call and they can't give you the real reasons and they're giving you this corporate BS speak. And that person who's giving you that corporate BS speak is under orders from seniors. Don't say that. Do say this. This is what you're allowed to say. Don't leave us open to a lawsuit, whatever. So it just felt inhuman when I was watching the video. She's like, well, why me? Like, they were like, well, we can't say it right now, blah, blah, blah.
What I think is really frustrating about the tech industry is that it acts like people are more important than the product. But when it comes to layoffs, what you see is that the product is more important than people.
Yeah,
and the very fact that, and shareholders, but the very fact that people can't even get like an actual like heartfelt explanation for why their role is impacted, the fact that they can't even get like heartfelt, offboarding, like, support shows that at the end of the day, you're a line on a spreadsheet. And when push came to shove, you're cut to protect the bottom line.
And it's interesting. I think remote work has made layoffs easier. So, for example, now you can get on a Zoom call with 80 people and just be like, I'm sorry, you know, and they're all muted.
Succession style. Just get the whole department on.
Exactly, you're gone. Imagine in the past, it would have to be coming to the office, one-on-one. Someone's got to look you in the eye and you can just be like, what's going on? And they can't escape that easily.
I remember there was a George Clooney movie about it. We were talking about this on the previous podcast. And he was literally like a layoff expert.
He was a professional layoff expert. Companies would bring him in to lay off like whole swaths of teams, basically, right? And he knew exactly what to say and how to handle. People would be like, oh, you know, I'm going to kill myself and whatever. And companies would outsource it to him. But now we've got this thing where you can just do mass layoffs. There was like there was that one guy who did it so badly where he made it all about himself. Do you remember?
Yeah.
He was like, this is a tough day for me. I really don't want to do this. I was crying thinking about this. And everyone's like, yo, what about me, bro? You're laying me off, right?
I will say, though, we're getting a very wise lesson in capitalism.
What's that?
So I was reading the New York Times yesterday, and we're recording on the 20th of January. When I say this, the highest ever, stock market rally yesterday? Like, we finally beat, like, the highest day of 2022.
Yep. Mostly
in the tech stocks.
Right, yep.
I mean, hello, it's connected to the layoffs.
100%. Listen, the market loves it when companies are getting quote unquote lean. And that's the darkness of the capitalist system that we live in. But yeah, so Google has done layoffs too. And Google's
maybe more, right? They just announced that they might be doing more.
So last year they did like 12,000 layoffs, which is astonishing. That's like most companies will never reach that scale of 12,000 people. And then now they've done more, I think like 1,000 as well. How is it though that one of the most profitable, one of the most successful companies in the history of capitalism, with a ubiquitous product, is having to lay off so many people? That's the perplexity. That's the confusing part, isn't it?
When we think of the FANG companies, I'm talking about like the big tech companies, Facebook, now Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. There was a time where like all of them had like really strong, healthy, high share prices. But there's a really big disparity now between the share price of Apple and the share price of Google, which is really interesting. And I think we're going to see Google continue to do whatever it can to improve the value of its share price.
I think Sundar, who's the CEO, I've seen people call for him being let go. I can't lie. He needs to get laid off. Someone get him on a Zoom call. Are you in that
I'll
do it. I'll volunteer. Sundar, you got to go. No, because I think Google had such a great position in the sense that it's the door to the internet.
Absolutely.
Anytime you had a request, you went to Google. So when you're the funnel to the internet, you're capturing so much value, and then you can show ads, whenever you wanted, basically. Where I think they've got in trouble now is that people are realizing that it's not there yet, but with things like ChatGPT and even Perplexity, which is another kind of large language model type search engine. The results are often much better. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And often, sometimes when you're going on Google, what a lot of people do, and I do this too, is you're just typing in what you want to learn and then you put Reddit next to it. So you're not even going to Google for any real source of information. You're just trying to get the right Reddit thread, basically, right? Yeah. And the problem with, ChatGPT and Perplexity is that Google will have to cannibalize its business model in order to compete with them, because they just show you the results. I can do a before and after of Perplexity. You'll ask it, what's the best hotel in Bangkok? And it will just tell you what it thinks. Google now, you've got this large thing scrolling across with all the images of all the hotels, and then maybe there'll be like 10 links. And it's like, that is not a good user experience. Absolutely not. But they can't change that because that is their entire core business model. So they cannot cannibalize what has made them all this money. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I don't know how they out-innovate their way out of it too. And I think also just one final point on the layoffs. A lot of the layoffs are because essentially with AI, they went down the wrong rabbit hole. They're now realizing that large language models is where everything is going to be. Whereas
you mean the wrong rabbit hole, like
the technology, wise, basically. They went down, so DeepMind, they was probably working on LLMs. And now they realize that, okay, anyone who's AI, but who's not LLM, you probably have to go. That's what a lot of people are being let go from. Yeah. So as an employee, it's so difficult because you might pick down a path for your career, which is like very enticing, exciting. And then you're like, oh, hold on, I've picked the wrong path here.
How did Google become the laggard in AI? This is just wild.
I think, listen, whenever you've had a monopoly for a long time, which essentially they did, even though it hasn't legally been ruled as a monopoly, they did have one, you get complacent. Wow. The fact is you have... every employee had that 20% time where they could work on whatever they wanted that was not even Google related.
What, like that racist memo?
Exactly, James Damore. Shout out to James Damore, the racist guy. It was more of a sexist memo. Yeah, he was like saying that women, this is why women don't work in tech, because their brains are different. Yeah, basically. So when you have 20%, when you have employees able to work on 20% of non-work stuff, it tells me that you have a monopoly, one, and two, your eyes is not, you ain't got your eyes on the prize. Yeah. There's arguments that from that 20% time, like Gmail got invented, but listen, not everybody was inventing Gmail. Some people were just messing around. So I think it's just monopoly, just fat on the hog, not having to be focused. That's my opinion anyway.
one last thing on Google. Google kind of killed search in the sense that they created an SEO game that actually reduced the quality of results.
100%.
So what you'll find now is like, let's say you're trying to like repair something in your apartment or find a recipe. Like the first page of results will be people who have written articles about what you're trying to find without actually answering the question.
Yeah, a lot of long-winded crap.
And I understand why people are now going to TikTok to search for things, or other platforms like ChatGPT to search for things, because you know that the first page of Google results isn't actually going to answer your question.
Yeah, it's not. So in terms of, they call it the Magnificent Seven now. So the Microsoft, Apple, I think Nvidia's in there, Tesla's in there. That's the new name. It's not a FANG anymore. It's the Magnificent Seven.
I'm like a boomer when it comes to startups now.
Yeah. But apparently the new leader is Microsoft. So they at one point overtook Apple with the largest market cap of all those companies, 2.89 trillion. And Apple's
OpenAI is helping that.
That's the thing. So AI has been such a game changer that they at Microsoft, boring old Microsoft, has leapfrogged Apple.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting. I think Apple is slipping to a certain extent. I'll be honest with you. I think Apple needs to release Siri on steroids with, integrated with an LLM that actually works. Because if Siri was a great product, I think I'd put my entire life savings into Apple and sleep at night. Because literally, they have a monopoly on phones, on the top end of phones.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Every single well-to-do person has an iPhone.
And now they're going for VR. You're not feeling bullish about that?
So that's interesting. So I did a TikTok where I was talking about how, like, I was kind of looking at their homepage for spatial computing. What they call it, the era of spatial computing. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't understand. What is the value I'm going to get from this?
Yeah.
Is this for work? Is this for developers?
Who knows?
They don't even know. Are you getting that?
Yeah.
Are you going to buy that?
I mean, I feel like I probably won't. No, I won't.
If I said to you, though, it would make you 20% more productive at work.
I'm already quite productive.
So there's nowhere to go. There's no bandwidth left. Like I've maxed out productivity.
I've maxed out. It's diminishing returns. A quick point though on Apple, no longer being like that driver of innovation. CES 2024. Okay, so this is like the thing that we all look forward to in the tech world. Like, ooh, what's the cool hardware coming out? What are the cool devices? Extremely dry. Like literally the most compelling thing that came out of CES 2024 was the fact that someone made a see-through TV.
Oh, seriously? I didn't even know that.
And I was just like, okay. And then another thing was someone has made this like in-ear automatic translator. But I was like, I feel like we've kind of already had a version of that with Google Translate on our phones anyway.
What do you think of the... Have you seen Humane?
No.
Humane is basically this company that raised a bunch of money and it's from a former Apple exec.
Okay.
Who's part of the iPhone development. And it's like a pin that you put on your chest and then it fires into your hand and you can like use your hand as the interface. So it's like almost like a projector.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I want it.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool, but I don't know if it's going to work because I think when he went on TV to explain what it was, he just gave them his biggest gobbledygook.
Oh dear.
It's like, it's the new platform.
He's got a prototype.
Human interaction and it's just like translate into human language why this will improve my life. And a lot of tech executives can't do that. And it's probably why Steve Jobs was the GOAT, to be honest, because he could go on the stage and say 1,000 songs in your pocket and people just got it straight away.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what else has been happening since we've been away? Because I feel like there's been a lot of culture war type stuff that we ain't really spoke about.
Yeah, I mean, we're in an age of ideological warfare for
it feels
sure.
That way. It feels that way. And I feel like we're losing right now, bro. I'll be honest with you. We are losing heavy.
Yeah, we're definitely taking L's across the diversity and inclusion space. I think what's really scary right now is that we've got someone running one of the largest social media platforms who's like so hostile towards anyone that doesn't look like him.
DEI must die is
apparently what he tweeted. And it's like, bruh, like, okay, chill. I was like, you're like representing pre-apartheid South Africa right now.
It's not listen, a good man, the apple don't fall too far from the tree. That's all I'm saying. The apple don't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah.
Are we shocked?
I'm not shocked. I've been calling it for time. This guy is incredibly problematic.
You were the first. I'm not going to take that away from you.
As soon as he shot that car into space, I was like, cancel that, bro. But I think what's really troubling is how it validates a mindset. Once you have a powerful person saying absolute rubbish, everyone else who wants to spout rubbish feels validated in doing it.
They get brave. And actually, to be fair, I got an email and I posted this on my LinkedIn where, I've been running Pocket, which is a platform for POC and tech for a very long time. And I never, ever experienced hate mail, and now we just got one email where it was like, you N-words die. I hope you monkeys never work in tech.
What?
Like real, absolute nut stuff. And I posted it on LinkedIn.
He emailed as well, so like you could, or
yeah,
they,
but
whatever.
the thing is, so this is the interesting thing. So when I posted it on LinkedIn, obviously everyone was shocked. Oh my God, I can't believe this. But it took about 5 minutes for someone to be like, oh, how do we know this is not a Justice Malay situation? I was like, I DM'd that person. I was like, you think I wrote that and sent that to my own company?
Wow.
But I was like, but that's I don't even know what the word is in it, man. That's just the ignorance that exists within society.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people just don't want to accept that there are scumbag people who are that basically Nazi.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what you're saying is right. There's a lot of people that are emboldened by a lot of this kind of anti-DEI thing, and they spent probably 2 years in hell from their perspective when everyone was like, oh, we got to make this change. You know what I mean? People like you coming into the office telling them what we got to do, and they're like,
take
oh
orders
man,
from a face like this.
Yeah.
Then I was like, you should be lucky to take orders from a face like this. But I think we're just entering this era where it's so easy to dehumanize people who are not rich, cisgendered, heterosexual white men. It's like they're existing in their own tier of society, and anyone that doesn't either fall into that template or agree to what they say immediately gets downgraded to like animal, and I think it's so easy for them to speak like this when we see all the horrific conflicts unfolding, genocides unfolding, and they're just able to like separate themselves from those situations and protect purely their own economic interests. And they can literally see, I don't know, children dying, like innocent people being killed, and they can just be like, whatever. So I think I don't know, I studied the Third Reich in high school. And, when you study things like the rise of Hitler and the Third Reich, you always say like, how could that happen? How could people sit at home eating their dinners, whatever, reading the newspaper, and let these horrific actions unfold? And now in 2023, history is repeating itself, and we're back into these ideological warfares where we just try to like dehumanize groups of people. And it's really, really tragic.
Yeah, you know what though? If I was Bill Ackman's wife, I'd be so pissed off right now. I don't know if you've been following that whole story of Bill Ackman.
Is this why are all the women getting taken down for plagiarism? What is happening? I'll be next.
You know what?
Someone will say I plagiarized my own book.
Oh my days. So did that happen? Someone accused you of that for real? No. Okay. About to say you shouldn't even start that rumor because someone's gonna do a deep dive. Bill Ackman will do a deep dive. So basically, the long story short is there was a lot of university heads, CEOs of universities were brought in front of Congress and they were asked, what is your view of kind of like quote unquote anti-Semitism on campus, basically, because a lot of Jewish students feel unsafe, right, in the aftermath of October 7th. And I think Claudine Gay, who was the first black woman to be the head of Harvard, she gave it was a very legalistic answer when they asked her, like, what would you do if there was, people calling for the genocide of Jewish people on campus? And she gave the answer, which is basically in line with free speech, which is what a lot of the people who are her detractors have always wanted, which is, if it's a statement that is not targeted at a specific person, like I'm not harassing you, Abadesi, individually. I'm like, I want you to die, I want you to die. But if it's a political statement, that alone is not enough to be thrown out of campus, basically, right? Obviously, that ended up being leading to a complete furore, and because they couldn't fire her based on that, and Harvard stood their ground, somebody did an investigation into her dissertation and found examples of plagiarism. This was all spearheaded by Bill Ackman, who's a billionaire private equity investor. Okay. So he is one of the richest men in America. He invests in a lot of companies. He takes over companies, shuts them down, lays people off, whatever. He's basically a corporate raider. And he was very, he's very pro-Israel, and he was like completely aghast at what she said. And he said he found out that actually, because they're not going to fire her, we're looking into her dissertation and we found examples of plagiarism. Okay. That ended up getting her fired. But then people said, okay, Bill Ackman, your spouse, your wife is also a PhD professor, public figure also. Let's look into her dissertation. And they found the same examples of plagiarism.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Can you imagine if your spouse just dry snitched on you, got you exposed like that?
That's crazy.
But his response is not to, take a step back and think about how his actions have hurt his wife. His response is to try to shut down Business Insider, which is the publication that Business Insider was
like when Peter Thiel tried to take down Gawker.
Yeah, exactly. So Business Insider was the publication that looked into his wife's background dissertation. So now he's like talking to the owners of Business Insider, which is Axel Spring, I think, and he's like trying to get them shut down.
I'm sorry, but these billionaires are literally acting like toddlers, like throwing their toys out the pram. It's 1000%. So wild. It reminds me of like the latest season of Fargo. I don't know if you're watching that show. I never got into that.
I watched the movie
but basically there's like a very powerful matriarch character who's like the biggest donor to like everything in America. And she just does these crazy moves purely to get her own way.
Yeah.
Like no agenda beyond I want that to happen, so
Yeah.
I'm going to use my money to make it happen.
Because when you're a toddler, you believe that, you know,
your way is always right.
Your way is always right, and that the world should kowtow to whatever your needs and desires are, because you don't understand that the world is not just built for you. But when you're a billionaire, to a certain extent, you have been reborn as a toddler, because like you do have almost infinite power. You can shift and move markets. You can shut down companies.
Yeah.
You can buy politicians.
Yeah.
You can, you know, instigate and help wars, you know, keep going basically.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's like, well, hold on. How dare this publication look into my wife's background? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to shut them down. Like, imagine feeling like you have enough power to shut down journalists.
Yeah.
Like, and then at the same time, you're going to talk about free speech. And at the same time, you're going to talk about First Amendment and all this talk. But like, you're shutting down publications. You don't understand how tyrannical that is. Rightly or wrongly. I'm not saying Business Insider is the greatest publication of all time. I don't like Business Insider.
Still, come on, support journalism.
You know what I'm saying?
Support,
anyways,
information. So here's a question: if you were a billionaire, and you were facing increased regulation, I don't know, increased taxation, and just generally more scrutiny, would you consider spending billions on a social media platform to try and swing an election?
Yeah. I mean, if why would you not? Why would you not? If it's within your resources, if you've got hundreds of billions and 1 billion can get you a massive publication, a platform that can move the world in a direction that you want, why not? What I think people don't understand about billionaires is to become a billionaire, obviously you have to be a master at allocating capital, unless you inherit it straight up, but you have to be a master at allocating capital. So what I've seen people say is like, why are all these billionaires building bunkers? So there's a trend where like Zuckerberg's got one, I think Larry Ellison's got one. It doesn't necessarily mean that they believe that the world's going to end anytime soon. But as a billionaire, as a capital allocator, you're always going to invest 1% of your capital on the downside. Just in case this happens, we need to have our downside covered. So why am I going to buy 5 houses and not have one house that can survive the apocalypse? Doesn't necessarily mean they believe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So as a billionaire, you're also going to have that view with politics. If I can swing an election 1%, if I can swing an election, in my favor, why not allocate 1% of my capital to buying a platform? Do you know what I mean? That can move the world 5% in my direction. Yeah. That's powerful. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like me and you investing £10 to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, our MP can, be who we want it to be, and it might, mean my parking is better. Yeah. Something small like that.
Yeah. Here's a question. Everyone hates billionaires until they have the chance to be one. Yes
that's
or no?
True. No, of course. I am a believer that everyone just plays their incentive. So I've spoken to friends.
Interesting. A very Hobbesian view of the world.
Well, I think I've spoken to friends where I'm like, they've never, ran a business before. We came up together. We went to school together. Yeah. Now they're employees, and they are telling me that they don't really give a crap about their job, and they're kind of on the just milking the company for what it's worth. And then I said to them like, oh, what would you do like if it was your business? Oh, of course not. I would fire this person. I would do this, and you can't last a minute in my organization, and I'm like, well, that's because you're playing your incentive. You're not principally like pro-employer, or employee. You're just principle. Your principle is what works for me in any given situation, 100%. And that's human nature. You can't be mad at people for doing that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So what was the question again? You said
so everyone hates billionaires until they get the chance to be one. And the reason I say that is because there's also like an increasing conversation about D&I ideology and the fact that a lot of people accepted diversity and inclusion roles purely to secure the bag, not necessarily. Oh wow! You mean the employees basically? Yeah. Interesting. Of course, definitely. And it's back to that idea of like opportunism and incentivization. And I think this really is ultimately the downfall of our species. We are just too short-sighted. Definitely. We never play the long game. We can't think collectively and plan for the long term. And, when no one is there to see us, there's no incentive to be righteous or ethical or live by our values. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of smart rich people who invest based on the idea knowing that human beings are short-sighted. So when there's a crypto bubble, you short. Or you sell at the right moment. Yeah. When there's a stock market bubble, you short or you sell at the right moment, because you know that people cannot see the forest from the trees. They're just going to be like, oh, let me just buy. Everything's going up, blah, blah, blah. Greed. And you're there thinking, okay, let me take a step back. This is going to blow up. This can't last. Yeah. To be fair, I almost was that clever, because I remember going to like a family function and my uncle was asking me about crypto, and I was like, time to sell, baby. I was like, it's time to sell. I still got some crypto.
When the uncle taxi driver was talking about, do you know crypto? I was like, yes, I know crypto.
I'm howdy. Hey, Bitcoin was on a high the other day.
Bitcoin is back, because it's got like an ETF now, right? So basically now it's kind of been formalized and kind of professionalized, and now you can go and buy it within the ETF, within a kind of trackable fund without actually owning the underlying asset. But what's interesting about that is that the head of JP Morgan, I think Jamie Dimon, he himself is like,
what a name.
Yeah, I know. I think, is it Diamond or Diamond? I don't know. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. But he basically is saying that like, yo, I personally don't believe in Bitcoin. I think it's a crock, basically. But if my customers want to buy it, I'm selling it. But that's an example of like human beings are short-sighted. I don't believe this asset has any intrinsic value. But if you lot want shovels, I'm selling you shovels. If you lot want this, we're gonna sell it to you. Are you still? Because I sold all my crypto. I
do still have crypto. I like to keep my portfolio diversified. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know.
Talk about your portfolio. What's your portfolio saying? I'm talking about numbers, but like what?
Really?
Yeah, for real. Why not?
Cool.
Why not?
Yeah, nice. Well, obviously here in the UK we have like tax-free savings through ISA.
Right.
So fill my ISA.
It's like a 401k equivalent in the US would be. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So fill it up every year. Fill it up.
With what though? Stocks.
Well, I have a blend. So like some of them are stocks and shares. Some of them are like locked in high interest rate fixed term kind of things.
Interesting.
Like 4%, 5%. Interest rate's been good.
Interest rates are good, yeah.
I generally don't pick individual stocks because I tried to be that person like during like the GameStop era. Like
you thought you was Michael Burry. You was like the Big Short with Abadesi.
Yeah. Like Margot Robbie in the bathtub.
Yeah.
So I tried to be that person, and I realized individual stock picking is not for me. So upon my wise friend Michael Burhane's advice, I'm just more of an index fund kind of guy.
Oh, was it me that told you that, basically?
Well, not just you. Interestingly, I started shopping around different wealth managers, and they said similar things like tracker funds, index funds is the way to go.
Do you have a wealth manager?
Well, I'm actually like interviewing a few. I haven't like settled on one, but it's been interesting. Like it's been really interesting. And honestly, if anyone hasn't done this before, please go and do this, because you can have so many conversations for free. And when you speak to them, you realize like most people don't start having those conversations until they're approaching retirement.
Right.
So to be in my 30s having those conversations, they're just like, wow, it's so good that you're thinking about this now.
Yeah.
And they like give you this like cool little projection. They're like, okay, what age do you want to retire? How much do you want to earn? How much do you have now? And like as you change the different variables, you can see like your net worth changing. You can see like the size of your pension changing. You can see like your salary changing. So it's been really enlightening. But yeah, I mean, for me, wealth management is very much just about trying to live like humbly. Like I don't spend all the money that I make, trying to like save as much as possible. But yeah, definitely just try to like diversify like how I'm investing my assets. Obviously I have property as well. Okay. And I'm actually thinking of getting a second property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Watch
I love
space.
it. You know what I was going to say though? So wealth managers are very interesting because I spoke to a few, and I'm relatively well educated on like matters to do with like investing.
Yeah, you're smart, bro. You give me some good tips.
Yeah, so I've read quite a few books, and a lot of them are very simple. I'll probably put them in the show notes if anyone wants to read them. So when I was talking to a wealth manager, I could tell when they were trying to finesse me. And the reason why is that, so there's two types of wealth managers. There's a wealth manager who's trying to sell assets that he is incentivized to sell.
And their products as well.
And their products, basically. And then there's a wealth manager whose job it is basically just to look out for your best interest.
Yeah.
So I ended up talking to somebody who was trying to sell their products. And I was like, oh, so what's the fee saying? And I think he quoted a number where maybe it was like, 1%. And to somebody who's not up to speed with wealth managers and investing, 1% of your assets doesn't sound like a lot. But when it's compounded over a 30, 40 year period, if you are trying to retire, let's say with $1 million portfolio, right? If somebody has been taking 1% along the way, you will be like 300, 400,000 less well off compared to the person who just put all their money in a low cost index fund without having a wealth manager whatsoever. So to me, I'm not pro wealth managers unless, they just take an upfront fee, an upfront payment, and they just give you the advice.
I'll tell you something.
By the hour, something like that.
Two really cool communities. Vestpod, Emily Bellet, female founder, UK based. She has an amazing book called You're Not Broke, You're Pre-Rich. Okay. Similar vein to like Bull of Souls, How to Spend It.
I love that. Books. Yeah. I should have had that when I was young. I ain't broke. I'm pre-rich.
Exactly. But really great book. And I did. I attended one of her webinars. And another female founder was there on the show. Unbiased.co.uk is their website, and she was saying how it's really hard, to your point, to understand if you're getting like unbiased advice, because most people do have a bias towards their fund's products or whatever. So unbiased.co.uk, if you are based in the UK, is a really, really good website. And they even have like this questionnaire, which is like things to think about when looking for a wealth manager. So if it is, for example, are they being paid on a one-off fee? Like, for example, just to like build you a savings plan or retirement plan? Or to your point, are they taking a percentage? And yeah, like I definitely noticed that with some of the people I interviewed. They were just like going hard on like, put your business savings into this and that. And then I asked like 3 different founder friends and they're like, nah, don't do that. That's too expensive.
Yeah. Let's wrap up this episode. It's been good to be back. We will be back next week. So
yeah, and we're always looking for sponsors. We reach a wide global audience. So if you would like to promote your product, your service, hit us up.
And if you're just a general listener, leave a review, please.
Yeah.
5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple. We really appreciate that.
Also happy to answer questions. So if you're looking for a new role, trying to take your business to the next level, trying to start a biz, how many years of experience we got, Beatrice? We got a lot. Too much. So yeah, send your questions our way.
All right, cool. Peace. That's episode 1 done.